U.S. military officials expected to arrive in Nigeria today to help in the search for hundreds of missing schoolgirls kidnapped by Islamist militants. A Pentagon press secretary says there are no plans to send American combat troops. The efforts will be focused on rescuing the girls and, in the long term, defeating militant group Boko Haram. The group kidnapped nearly 300 girls from their beds in the middle of the night on April 14th. A few escaped into a nearby forest. Authorities say those still missing have likely been separated and taken out of the country. Joining us now to talk about the situation in Nigeria and with Boko Haram, we have former CIA analyst Lisa Ruth. Lisa, we are always pleased to have you here. This is a horrible story to have to talk about.
It is.
When we take a look at Boko Haram, in retrospect, we understand the State Department avoided designating this as a terrorist group. There is such, what can I call it, Washington games at work here that in retrospect, it just appears horrible for American officials and obviously for the people in Nigeria.
All the way around. And when we talk about Boko Haram, remember we're also talking about their offshoot, Ansaru, which is another militant group in Nigeria that the U.S. also did not designate as a terrorist group.
When we look at what has happened so far, and of course we had a press conference from the Secretary of State talking about sending FBI agents and other support staff in, but not any military and no talk of special forces at this point. And then you've had the social media campaign with the hashtag the First Lady, other prominent female Democrats. Has this thing been politicized to the point? Here's the reason I'm asking. It would seem to me if we were serious about trying to help, we wouldn't be saying a word about our efforts. We'd have special forces in there trying to effect a rescue mission. Is this just all D.C. grandstanding?
Again, my background in the intelligence community, this always surprises me when we start going out and talking about this stuff. To your point, I still think the best way we can help is intelligence. You know, special forces are great, all these things, but the fact is Boko Haram has an escape route. They can go up to the border, they can go into Cameroon, they can go into Chad, they can go into Niger. So even if we completely clamp down inside Nigeria, you still have a problem. We need the intelligence. We need to know where these guys are. We need to know how to get them. Obviously, Nigeria doesn't have that. That's where I think the U.S. should be helping. That should be the emphasis. Maybe it is. My guess is no.
Well, last week on the cover of The Economist, they asked the question, what would America still fight for? There's obviously a war weariness in this country, and this doesn't rise to the level of full military engagement, but sending military troops, special forces in there, is that really something that can be done here, Lisa, considering there has been no direct targeting of any Americans, there's no direct involvement with America, just these girls?
My guess is, and I've told colleagues this, the problem with Nigeria is it's Nigeria. The fact is the United States continues.
Yeah, and obviously folks are having some trouble with the lights here in the studio. We're all okay. We've got a website up. We'll continue on. We got the lights back on. Let's carry on as we were, Lisa.
The problem really is we've always had this situation. Africa is a very low-level priority for the United States, for most Americans. And interestingly, we were talking a little bit about the Marine. When I was talking to people and saying these schoolgirls, and this is horrific, absolutely horrific, my response, people say to me, but what about that U.S. Marine in Tijuana? We're not doing anything there. I think it would be very, very difficult to mobilize troops to go in to get these girls, which is, again, very sad. But the fact is we do have limited resources. And I'm not sure that the American public is prepared to do that.
And another thing that we have discussed just prior to doing this interview is the difference between the cooperation that the U.S. government does get in a country like Nigeria compared to the cooperation we do receive from a country like Yemen on the other side of the continent. Talk to us about that difference.
Absolutely, and again, it's very interesting. Yemen wants Al-Qaeda out. There's no question. They share a lot of intelligence with us. One of the reasons we can do drone strikes there is Yemen says, yes, please come in, help us get rid of Al-Qaeda. Nigeria has been very careful so far. And even if you listen to the imams, for example, or the Christian leaders there, up until very recently, they have said, we are a country that can handle this on our own. Don't disrespect us. We don't need your help. Well, this week that has changed. One of the problems with Nigeria is we don't have that full level of cooperation. to do a drone strike in Nigeria, as we also said, I don't think the Nigerians have the intelligence even to target it. So I don't know that we could do that. I think Boko Haram has pretty good intelligence of what the Nigerian military is doing.
Well, and this brings up the larger strategic implication, and that is Boko Haram and its affiliated groups growing more and more and more confident, more and more emboldened. And yes, it is true that no Americans are directly involved in this, but in terms of future terror power, the inaction of the world certainly would embolden, it would seem to me, Boko Haram.
Well, and let's talk about Mali for a minute here. Another country that many Americans would say, who cares what happens in Mali? No offense. You had a situation where there's a complete breakdown, and we had Al-Qaeda and other militants really establishing a base there, able to operate. The more you allow terrorists to operate independently without being bothered, the better they can plan, the better they can train, the better they can equip, the more it's a threat to the Americans.
We have heard some talk that our ally, the United Kingdom, is taking a look at utilizing special forces. Obviously, the UK, a long relationship from the colonial era in that part of the world. Do you contemplate, are you hearing any buzz about the British possibly taking action?
We are. I, in fact, was talking to a colleague this morning who said, again, much like Mali, that the French felt they had to go into their former colony. The Brits look at Nigeria and say, maybe we have some responsibility. At this point, I'm just hearing buzz. I have not seen any action on the ground. You know, I think probably they're assessing, again, their realistic ability to bring these girls back without intelligence on the ground, talking about an area that's very poorly maintained. I don't know that they want to send troops in again. If you send troops in and all of a sudden they're attacked by Boko Haram, what is the backlash there?
Well, the situation that has developed now, and obviously this is emotional. Everyone who is a parent thinks about the abduction of their child. You think about this by a terror group, you think about the Islamist influence in the area. But the fact is, if we're to be dispassionate and taking a look at the geopolitics of Africa and what is at stake there, to become more Machiavellian and take it out of the emotional vein, the fact is that Africa is rich in natural resources that are needed for our computer age, for still the use of fossil fuel, and it is very, very important, even though so often it is shoved to the back pages of the newspaper.
Absolutely, even in terms of trade, markets. These are markets that are starting to import U.S. goods. We're having more trade relations, gold, other minerals. You're looking at a relationship that we have ignored for a long time. And at what point is it too late to catch up?
And the one thing, it seemed there was an insistence from the Congressional Black Caucus and the Obama administration earlier in the days of this president to be very sensitive to African issues, and there were points made within the Congressional Black Caucus, but even there, that receded. We should point out that Boko Haram has been involved in the execution and the persecution of Christians in Nigeria, but it took this story to really catapult it to the front page.
And absolutely, Boko Haram has done Christmas church bombings for 2 years in a row, 2010, 2011. They also do attack moderate Muslims. Anybody who doesn't agree with them is a target. But as you said, up until very recently, it's like Joseph Kony, somebody who operates. Until very recently, Americans weren't really focused on it, and certainly I haven't gotten the sense that the administration's focused on it.
So right now, if we're doing an intelligence assessment of domestic politics, there will be continued expressions of concern in the social media. There will be Secretary Kerry going out talking about all the things the United States is doing, and in reality, very little will be done in all likelihood.
My guess is there's very little that can be done. One of the strange ironies of this situation is there are divisions inside Boko Haram itself, and very different factions vying for what should happen with these girls. And right now, the best case for the girls is that one of these other factions gets a little bit more power and they get released.
It's hard to imagine a moderate section of Boko Haram, but all things are relative.
Exactly. But everybody they use something for their own means. I don't know that I'd call them moderate.
Right. I'll take that friendly amendment because we know just how hostile and how murderous this group is. Lisa, we always appreciate your insights and analysis. So, where do we go with this? What should be the response of the U.S.? Constitutionally, practically, is there any role for American involvement? We'd love to hear from you. Why don't you tweet us your comments on this to Newsmax TV, #America's Forum. You can also email us. Our address, connect@newsmaxtv.com. And there's Facebook, facebook.com/Newsmax. Coming back, a GOP rising star and veteran about the VA health scandal.